Welcome back to Motivation Equation. Teaching is learning and learning is teaching. Yesterday, while going through the algorithm of YouTube, I encountered a channel called Teacher Therapy. If you're interested in the field of education, or if you are a teacher, whatever the case may be, the lady has some interesting information and her channel is worth checking out. So she had a video. I can't remember if the video was about school discipline or if it just touched on the topic of school discipline. Either way, I made some positive comments concerning how school discipline problems can be overcome. She asked some questions about me, strictly or pertaining to the type of policy that the school district has that I work in. And I do believe one of her questions was, are we allowed to levy any type of punishment on our students? And yes, the policy does allow for us to do referrals and paperwork and phone calls. And if push comes to shove, a student can be removed from class temporarily. They can be assigned detention, although the school I work at this year had some issues with the detention, and in some schools that hasn't been available at all. Actually, there's been a couple of schools I worked at where I was the person who held after school detention, and that's going to lead into my main topic for today. She then asked, and it's a very legit question, and again, it's relating to the main point today. She then asked, okay, do you think as a black male teacher, does that make any difference in how you're treated in the classroom? She also asked what grade I taught, which is high school business education. And the reality of the situation and the answer to that question is yes, a resounding, absolute yes. As a black male educator, right now, black men, if you're listening and you're thinking about going into a field or a profession, if you get a teaching certification, I don't care what state you touch down in, you will be able to find a job the same day. And I know because I've done that before. In some cases, I've taken those opportunities. In some, I have not. What some people may not know is I actually have a teaching certification for DC public schools. It may have lapsed by now. And I actually began the process to get certified in Prince George's County School, and I found a job there the same day when I went to go interview for jobs when I considered moving to Washington, D.C. Roughly 2 or 3 years ago. Right now, black men, the field of education needs you. Our masculinity, our thunderous voices, the compassion that we put into things that we care about and people that we care about, our dynamic thinking ability, going back to the beginning of time, creating math, science, even social sciences in Africa, architecture, weaponry. We're the first civilization known to mankind. We're the first people here, even in America, going back to the plantations. Black people educated the slave masters' children. And I say that because you're at a premium, definitely in urban environments. You could land in suburban private school environments and that type of thing now, since those parts of society are more structured and don't necessarily require such a presence as yours all the time. Then yes, you may not be as in demand in those type of environments as you would in the inner city. But any school that is predominantly black, if you're a black male with a pulse, I actually took that from another educator. I need to see if she wants credit for her phrase, but I did borrow that from a long-time acquaintance of mine in the field of education. But if you're a black man with the pulse, you can get a job in education, especially if you're willing to coach, and especially if you're willing to be a disciplinarian. The inner city school, all schools have problems. I'll talk about the different problems that different types of schools have later. But all schools have problems, but the problems that are that plague inner city schools and even predominantly African American rural schools, they're an environment that is darn near tailor-made for a black man who understands people skills, who has some intestinal fortitude, and who's willing to use his God-given characteristics as a man. There are just certain levels of disrespect children and even parents won't go to for a black male teacher. There are certain things you won't see. If you're willing to coach sports, at that point, especially if you become a head coach, there's many occasions you'll have more influence than the principal. In my particular case, I teach at my alma mater. So because I know some of these kids' parents, cousins, relatives, I'm actually from their neighborhood, I take a level of pride in what I do and where I come from. My mother still lives in that community. I still live in that community. I have even another level of I wouldn't say privileges, but my toolbox, I can go into my toolbox and pull out some things that other educators, the assistant principals, and even the principal can't reach. I've solved some problems for my principal that he didn't even know he had before school even started, before the weekend ended and a Monday came. Something was developing in a particular case, and I said, hey, young man, remember that situation last week? You owe me one. And next thing you know, a situation that could have landed us on the news, all of a sudden it doesn't happen. And brothers, you know what I'm talking about. You understand the language I'm speaking. You understand these types of scenarios. That is valuable in education. Also, your ability to understand the answer to the magic question when the students ask, well, how am I going to use this when I become an adult? You know where they come from. You understand their plight as young black men and young black women. And you can relate the answers to those questions in formats that they understand that are socially and culturally relevant. Who better to tell them than you? Also, many of our students, unfortunately, may not have access to a male in the home. Let me not say male, a man in the home. That causes curiosity in some. That also answers the calling of a genetic imperative in a person to have some form of a father figure. Am I telling you to adopt kids? No. I'm lying if I sit here and tell you I haven't paid fees and bought uniforms and bought scholastic materials and even paid bills. And yeah, I've taken a couple of kids in too. I've taken some on recruiting visits for college for both academics and athletics. I've tutored kids who I don't have to. I mean, but that's what education is now. You're more than just a teacher if you're going to step into the field. But I'm telling you, black men, if you're looking for a field to get into, and look at my other video entitled People Who Should Get Into Education, if you're a black male, and especially if you fall into any one of those categories, or if you just want to teach, the field is wide open for you. And in inner city school, even if there's going to be some occasions where if you go looking for a job at an inner city or a predominantly black rural school where you may not even be certified in the area where there's an opening. They may ask you if you want to get certified in that area and hire you while you get certified or while you go take your credentialing test. In Louisiana, it's the praxis exam. It may be different elsewhere. But a smart principal knows what you bring to the table. And I'll even take it a step further. Yes, you do have certain types of violence that take place in African American schools. But you ever wonder why mass shooters don't target African American schools? That's because there's a bunch of black men inside there. Say what you want, but it don't happen. Now, you may have situations where there's problems in the neighborhood and you may have one person come looking for one person. But as far as just shooting up the whole school, brothers ain't going for that. And somebody's going to say, hey, look, you know what it is. Either we sit here and we all die, or somebody's going to do something. And real quick, somebody's going to come up with a plan, and that shooter's going to get dealt with. And I had a situation something like that at one school, and there was a group of guys dressing up as clowns and threatening to go to different schools. Me and the black male teachers at my school, we were on it that morning. We had our game plan, and it was a small city, so it was easy to communicate with the sheriff. But bottom line, some of the kids, some of the football players were like, hey, what you want us to do, Mr. Motivation Equation? How do you want us to help? And I told them, hey, you're kids and that's not your place. And they said, yeah, cool. We know you got to say that, but hey, man, it ain't going down like that here. Okay, fine. But, I didn't tell you to do that, and I'm not telling you to do that. There's grown men here, and we got that. And they said, well, we appreciate you, but it is what it is. And see, that very spirit, that very attitude, that ability to come together and make sure that the greater good is taken care of, that the pasture of sheep is guarded by a sheepdog, that there's a lion over the pride. That's the essence of what makes you different and unique in the field of education, black men. So I encourage you to at least take a look into the field. You don't have to stay forever if it's not what you want to do. Being able to get off at 2:30 and 3:30 every day is a great way to have a salary coming in while you work on your IT certification, while you operate your small business, while you get another degree, while you do another job at night, or whatever it is that your heart may desire and whatever it is that you're looking to do. So take that into consideration. I may have another video on the topic when I go back and I review this one to see if I've left anything out. If there's anything you can think of that I left out, go ahead and put that in the comment section, because eventually I'm going to market this channel. You're hearing one of the early videos in the growth stages. Later on, when I start to advertise and put other forms of social media in with it, other people will see this. Therefore, if you catch it early, place your comments in the comment box, because it's going to help other educators. You know how that works. Somebody who's young and in the field and looking for answers or thinking about getting into the field will benefit. Motivation Equation. Teaching is learning. Learning is teaching. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Thank you for your time. Have a good day.